Hello everyone, welcome to Binary Broom. This is session number 4 of Python tutorial. First, without wasting any time, let's start with the answer of the practice that we had in previous session. Well, it is quite simple. We don't need to spend much time on it. We just place those strings that we have in the print, but in the correct order that we have here, and the output will be exactly as expected. So there is nothing much to talk about here. Let's get started. As I said, this session is about casting and converting, meaning that we are going to convert different data types to each other. As we spoke about it in the previous session, we have a lot of different types, but the main data types that we are going to mention in this session are integers, floats, and strings. Well, in general, there are three main functions that are pretty useful, that are int, float, and str, as you can see here, that are mainly used to convert types to each other. And the usage is pretty simple. We just give them their input, and the output is always the type that we expect. But it may return an error if it is not convertible, if it cannot convert the type. For example, as you can see down here, we have a number 5. We convert it to integer, we print it, so it's already an integer, so there's no change here. We also have a float function. When we give it this number, which is an integer, you see that there is a .0 at the end, which means that the type is totally converted to a float. But since there are no fractions here, we just see a 0 in the decimal section. And str, we give it an integer, and what we get is a string that has the character of 5 in it. So the outputs are already here. We go on. I also brought another example of a float number that we are converting it. Here, when we convert it to an integer, all the fraction is completely lost, and what we get is a simple integer, which is 5. When we convert it to float, it is just the way it was, so there is no change here. And when we convert it to string, what we get is a string of the exact number, so the decimals are not removed, so it is exactly a string. And another thing that I wanted to mention here is that the mathematical operations are the problem here. When we have a string, which is a 5, which is a number, and we want to add 1 to it, we cannot just do it when it is in string. When we run this, we're going to get an error, which error says that it cannot concatenate the string into another integer. Well, in the next session, we are going to talk about the strings and the operations that they have. But for now, just accept that a string cannot be added to 1, and a 1 cannot be added to a string because the types are totally different, and this add operation cannot do anything. It doesn't know what to do. So in order to actually add 1 to this 5, we need to convert it to an integer here. When we convert it to an integer and do this +1 thing, we get 6. So as you can see, when we convert it to integer, the operation is done correctly and we get the correct output. But here there's also another thing. We don't need to convert it to an integer. We can convert it to a float number. We can convert it to a float, but the output is also a float. As you can see in the next example, when an integer is added to a float number, the result is a float number, because float is kind of more general and it covers more numbers. So when you add an integer to a float, the compiler decides that the result must be in float type so that it covers all possible outputs. So as you can see down here, when we have an a, which is 1 but in float type, as you can see we have fraction here, and b, which is an integer, and when we add them to each other, the output is a float, and it's not an integer, even though we don't have any decimals here. In division, there are some cases that I thought that it's good to bring them here. When we are dividing two integers, the output must be a float. For example, here we are dividing 5 by 2, and as you can see, the output is 2.5 because that's the output. But maybe we want to get the integer in the output. What we can do here, first we can also do this conversion using the function that we just learned about, and the output will be 2. But there are also another way, which is to add another division sign, and the output will be 2 as well. This means that I don't need the decimal part. I don't need those fractions. Just give me an integer, and that's what we get. So this is the way we can keep the types the same, so that we don't have any float number, and everything goes in integer and the fractions are deleted. So as a bonus to get to this part of the video, we have also something that is not quite related to the main topic of this video, but it is pretty useful, and we are going to use it in the future and in the practices of this session as well, which is getting input from the user. How we are getting input from the user and how to use it in our code. Well, there is a function for this, which is the input. The input function will wait for the user to enter something, and it's gonna give it as an output, and we can store it in a variable. The way it works is that as input, this function gets a string. Uh, this string will be printed before asking the user to give the input. So when I run this, it's gonna say enter a number, and now I am going to enter a number. It's like a message to the user to what to do. You can leave it empty, and it's gonna just wait for an input. But when you fill it, the user will know what to do and why the program is stopped. So it tells me to enter a number. I just enter a number, and it's gonna tell me the number that you sent is 9, and the type of that number is string. The important thing here that I wanted to mention is that the output of this input function is always a string. No matter what we give it, like a number or string or a float, the output is always string. And if you want to use that number in an operation, you want to add it to something else, you want to, I don't know, cast it to something specific, you need to convert its type. So it's always a string. And if I wanted to, I don't know, +1 this input, I need to first convert it to an integer, and then do all the stuff that I want to do. So that's pretty much it for this session. I don't want the sessions to be too long, so that you'll be able to watch it pretty fast and easy. So for the practices of this session, we have two practices. The first one is to get an input from the user as their name and print a welcome note for that user, and that welcome note needs to contain the user's name in it. So you just get a name and you print that welcome that name. For example, if the name is Chris, you say welcome Chris, and you get that name in an input. Just pretty much like the practice that we had, but this time you have to get that name from the input. The second practice is that you're going to get two numbers from the user, and you're going to print the sum of those numbers. So you're going to have to use two input functions. You get two numbers, and using the knowledge that you have from this session, using those converting functions, you need to convert their type. You're going to add them to each other, and you're going to print them using the print function. So it's pretty clear. I just want you to actually code and find a way to write these programs on your own. So that's it. Thank you for watching. If you find these contents valuable, please subscribe and like these videos. Also leave a comment, and I can use the ideas of yours to make these videos better and better. Thank you all. Goodbye.